actually booking in Florida during that run that you had there with Eddie?
I did go down there as the booker in I think it was 84.
And what was that experience like?
Well, I went down there under strange circumstances because he was looking for a booker, and I think Eddie and Jerry Jarrett were kind of good friends, or were friendly enough. And Eddie told him, do you have anybody there that would be interested or possibly capable of coming down and helping book the territory? And Jerry suggested that I might be a good candidate for it. So I remember flying down there one day, and Dory Funk was the booker at the time, but he was leaving.
Yeah.
And Dory picked me up at the airport and took me over to the office, and I sat down and talked to Eddie. It was a job interview.
Right.
I sat and talked to Eddie for like an hour and a half, and he was just checking me out to see if my philosophy of the wrestling business kind of agreed with his, and I guess it did. And then I went down there. But at the time, Dusty Rhodes had just left Florida to go to Mid-Atlantic, to go to Charlotte with the Crockett's. And what he did, he gutted the territory.
Okay.
He took Kendall Windham, Barry Windham with him. He took Ivan Koloff, he took him, and he took a bunch that were big star. And of course Dusty left, he was the big star. But all of a sudden all the big stars that they had been watching on Florida TV, if I'm a fan, and all of a sudden there's no Dusty. And all of a sudden there's no Barry Windham. And all of a sudden there's no Nikita Koloff. And all of a sudden there's not this guy or that guy. He gutted the territory, so when I went down there, I didn't want to push the reset button, but it was already pushed. It was almost a do-over.
Right. I
had to start from basically scratch and trying to get over people who weren't over before, or just new people. And then Michael Hayes joined me a little later and brought the Freebirds in, which helped. But actually business, I think I went down there in September 1984.
Right.
Excuse me. I left 6 months later because it was, I was working like 80 hours a week. And booking's more thinking than it is anything else. Plus I was wrestling too. So I was just, after 6 months, I was burnt.
There's so many theories out there on why Eddie decided to kill himself.
A lot of theories.
I think it was Kevin Sullivan that told me that it runs in the family, I guess because of Mike, and I guess someone else in the family had also killed himself.
Well, yeah, his grandson killed himself.
Oh, even the grandson has killed himself.
And his son. Mike killed himself.
Yeah.
With a gun, I think.
So do you think there was I've heard there's a real estate deal that may have gone bad, he may have had to do some prison time?
That was the rumor that was set, that some real estate had some shady background to it. And he thought that would be brought out and he would be embarrassed. Because Eddie worked his whole life Eddie came from a very, very poor background. And it was a little town above Chattanooga. I think it was called Dayton, Tennessee, was where he came from, I think, or around there. But he came from a very, very sparse and tough upbringing. And when he got to Florida, he wanted to be well respected. And Eddy Graham was well respected in the state of Florida because he was a big booster and supporter of the Boys and Girls Club. And people respected Eddie. And I did hear that it could have been a real estate deal that went south. And I heard a few more things. I can't remember what it was, but business actually wasn't that good at that time because Dusty, like I said, Dusty had left, taking the territory. So, and I don't know who else was. I think Hiro Matsuda owned a part of it. I think Buddy Fuller still owned a part of it. It was what I call the Southern Mafia of the wrestling business. you know, they were connected in Florida and Atlanta and different places, and Alabama too, and Tennessee.
And I guess Eddie also had a bit of a alcohol problem. Kevin was telling us that he would fly drunk sometimes and do some crazy stuff when he was under.
Well, when I was there, I don't think he had so much of a gambling problem, but when I saw him, he always looked really tense and troubled. Because a lot of times I wanted to sit down and just talk to him. I just wanted to pick his brain. But he had other ideas, and he had to go somewhere, and even when he would come to the office, he'd be on the phone all the time to somebody. You know, I never asked him, but